Allbirds is one of the biggest e-commerce store in 2026. Their Shopify store does well in 9 figures, and that requires a site that's good at branding, but it's also good at converting their users. We, as a CRO agency, have analyzed thousands of stores. So today, I'll take you through the good, the bad, and the ugly for Allbirds and take all the learnings that you can implement into your own store. So what I've done, I've prepared this Figma file. I'll show you each step in their funnel and why it's good and why it's bad. So let's just directly get started with the homepage. So they're not a cheap brand with countdown timers and cheap messaging. Instead, they really focus on the branding, which makes this site very interesting to analyze. Because you might have a product as well that requires well-designed pages rather than screaming for that conversion. So what they always start with is this primary bar. This is crucial for any store. We've tested this many times and it just always works. What Allbirds really does is they repeat the same sentence over and over again. So they scream at the very top of the page, get 30% off when you spend $150 or more. And this message is repeated here in the primary bar, and you will see it everywhere. It sounds like they're giving you a discount, and they are, but they are actually giving you a reward. The way you normally do this is you run the site, you look at the average order value, and then you give free shipping or anything else to get users above that average order value, which sounds that they're giving you a discount, but because you're spending more, they actually give a little bit back to make you spend more. So very crucial, and they really make this clear, right? The images are distracting, but the title is incredibly clear. Discount automatically applied at checkout. You don't have to worry about that. Okay, so then here we have the images. It starts with a lifestyle imagery, which gives you a little bit of the feel for the branding and of course what the product looks like. Then if you scroll a little bit further, it goes into different categories. They sell too many products to show them all. So they want you to go into the section that you're actually interested in. This helps them learn what you're interested in, but of course also helps you see the right product so you can eventually make a purchase. So categorizing is very important, and doing it right is actually very complicated. Because right now, if I click on men's, I'm sure there are still many subcategories within men's. If you show those, you give a lot more options, but maybe too many options catches them off guard as well. So there's always a very interesting test going on categorizing the site correctly in the navigation, but also throughout the site to direct users to the right places. Then we have new arrivals. Of course, always good to show. These are always hot products. You always want to show some type of category. Best sellers, new arrivals, just back in stock, features products, anything that kind of adds value to a certain product. They have a very nice scrolling feature. So if you're on the right side of the screen, it goes to the right, and on the left side, it goes to the left. Very simple, and that's a lot easier than clicking like a little triangle here to go to the right. Okay, so then we have a list of products. What I would have liked to see here is if you can scroll through these images. There's always an argument against this because that allows the user to scroll through things very quickly without, of course, discovering everything about that product. So sometimes you want users to be able to see many products at once, which could be the case if you are scrolling through a list that's really big. You just want to make sure you click on the right one. Because clicking and going back, of course, you do it once or twice, but then it gets tedious. They're also adding these little tags, new color, to add value, to say something about the product. Especially in clothing, there's not necessarily a function to the product, especially if it's like a white t-shirt. What are you going to say about that? Right? There's very little that distinguishes you from the competitors. For, in this case, shoes, they might have a function, right? They might be very light and etc. etc. So having tags like this helps you kind of add value to things. There's only one color apparently. Other than that, very little information about these products on here. So they really want you to click. Okay, enough of the homepage. Nothing spectacular on this end. If we go into the collection page, They offer filters here at the top, always important, of course, especially if you have a lot of products. You kind of want to, at some point, understand what converts best. Because if this one converts very well, of course, you maybe want to show it at the top rather than at the bottom. So the more products you have, the more complicated this gets. But in this case, there are filters. I thought the left filter is a little bit hidden because I see this, these filters and I wouldn't think about this, but so far it's okay. Here they're also repeating again this message. So a lot of collection pages actually include these promotional banners like this. You know users are looking at this, and you might also assume that users won't read this. People are just blind to these things at some point. So here again, 30% off. We know it by now. Again, value tags, new color, new. You could have a little bit more than these. Of course, they're very repeating. Many colors. It's good that they don't show all colors, right? So +11, +7. Otherwise, again, with too many options, it gets a bit annoying. What they do very interestingly is sometimes when you scroll to a product collection page like this, there's like a small button to add to cart, and it's not always intuitive. But in this case, when you hover over the product, it expands the cart like we see here. And then it shows the different available sizes that you can use. Again, here also I would have liked to be able to scroll through the images to get a better view of what the product looks like. Yep, looks good, but could have been better. After scrolling for a little bit on the site, we get a pop-up, and I think this pop-up can be a lot better. I know we're offering in this case a 50% off discount, always good to have, but often that's not even enough because you kind of get blind to these things, right? Often you don't even read them, you know it's a pop-up and it's probably bad for you. So in this case, they say, want 50% off, it's yours when you join our email list. There's no sense of urgency. And the why is rather weak. It's yours when you join our email list. I don't want to join your email list. So it's kind of, it almost says like, I know you don't want it, but you can get it, but you have to do something you don't want. And that kind of makes me think like, oh, screw it then. And then here, decline offer is not really emotional, right? I want to feel something. I want to be bothered by clicking it away. And in this case, someone is not necessarily declining because you can also just close the pop-up and then you haven't even read this, right? So then you're given the option unlock 50% off or save 50% off for later. Okay, so it's really driven by that 15%. So here I got another example for you from Brooklinen. They add a time limit. So want 20% off during President's Day sale. They run a campaign that makes you feel the urgency. In this one, the discount is going to be there next week too. So this makes you feel a little bit more special and some sense of urgency. Don't miss out on the pursuit of coziness. The why here is a little bit stronger. We already know I get the discount, but why do I even want the discount? So in this case, the pursuit of coziness. It maybe doesn't necessarily relate to, it does relate to their products, but perhaps it's not the strongest either. But I think the idea is there. Yes, it's a very clear button. Or, no thanks, I'll pay full price. I want to close this pop-up, but I also don't want to pay full price. So there's like a conflict going on in the mind of the user that makes them, oh shit, no, I don't want this either. Let me read it. And I think that's a much better way of doing it. And something that's perhaps worth testing is here they already show the email address. So this is a clear form where they want something from you. But in this case, it's not necessarily the case. And I don't know where this will lead me. So the ask is probably a lot less, but eventually probably as the same. This will lead you to an email form. So it's a very different and interesting way to go about it. Okay, so then we get into the actual PDP. And I think here there are some improvements to be made. So in this case, there's also no social proof. And generally, we start with this all the time. Just above the title, add some star reviews. Either company-wide for the product, whatever it might be. Reviews that you've gathered as a business, as an owner, as your employees, doesn't really matter. Say something valuable and give people the confidence that this is a purchase that it's trustworthy, regardless how big you are. I went into the men's category. I chose a men's product, but repeatedly here they're communicating about women's sizes, which I think is pretty interesting. And pretty strange as well. So if I'm a man, I'm not going to click this. So this is a wasted space. We could have used this for, let's say, reviews or some unique selling points. But perhaps from their data, they can see that a lot of women reach this page. And of course, for them, it's interesting to actually see these sizes. So by default, I would never implement this. I think you would even want to personalize a lot more rather than just keeping it generic. And therefore, they might be losing out on space they could have used for something else. They do the same here on women's sizes. So yeah, very strange. This must have been tested. Otherwise, I would not recommend implementing this. Then the product so far says very little, right? We can see the product image, but that's it. We have a name, but the name says nothing. Colors, options, but there's no value added. 60% of people don't scroll past this image. And that's of course a problem because the product probably has great unique selling points and it looks different and it probably has some functionalities. Why not communicate those above the fold? So something that we test on every client's website is adding reviews here at the top, adding the title, and then adding a little paragraph, could be 1 sentence or 3 bullet points, describing the unique benefits from buying the product. So in this case, it might be incredibly light, it breathes really well, it's waterproof. That already adds incredible value and someone might really resonate with that. Okay, so the other thing interesting here is that they show colors, and a lot of products have different colors. But in this case, they even show the product image. It's small, but it already gives you a little bit of an idea what the color actually means. Sometimes you have 10 colors and you don't really know what that actually will look like. Even though, for example, here there's a little bit of black and there's a little bit of white, it seems. So showing the product images is a lot easier for the user to kind of go through it, right? It creates curiosity as well. But what's interesting about the colors is generally colors is just a preference thing. But when you want to make it functional, you can categorize these into, in this case, limited or classic. So it adds some feeling to it as well. Let's say I'm a classy guy, I click on classic. If I want to have something that's limited, I go to limited. So just colors alone don't communicate the actual value. And now we're speaking about colors, but it might be any variant that you're adding to your product. If it's a long list, try to categorize it, try to give value to it. Okay, then we have sizes, that's all fine. Here in very small, they basically are countering the objection that you might have. And this is important because the user goes through a page. And if 1,000 users go through a page, they almost all think the same at each section of the page. So you want to make sure that you know where their head's at and that you answer the questions that they have right away. Someone now has seen the options, the colors, probably scrolled down to see the images, but now they're making a decision, right? So that's the moment where you don't want to explain what the product is. It's a shoe. We're already past that. But in this case, people are questioning the size. So here you're saying true to size for most customers, and then even a fit guide. So you're offering guidance to them and you're making them feel safe. A little bit further down, there's a select size, but at some point this changes to an add to cart button. That's where the user thinks, okay, should I really add this to cart? Am I going to get screwed over? Is this really for me? Am I losing out on my money? Again, you repeat it. Free shipping and on orders over $75, easy returns. So especially the return thing is important here. So again, very, very good. I think they can do actually a better job at this. You can add icons rather than text because it's just visually a lot easier to skim through. And there are also no payment methods shared. Often this is very helpful to do as well on the checkout. Definitely worth testing. Here I've shown a different example of a PDP above the fold that I think does a pretty good job. So instead of this image scroll functionality, there's a little gallery, right? So it already sparks interest as well. So you can see what it actually means. And also here, only the first one really has a product image and the other ones are just information. This one is actually a comparison of all the colors. So what do they look like if you choose any of the colors rather than going through all these different options, which is pretty tedious. Good. They also added a tag, bestseller, great. even a badge, good housekeeping, adds a lot of value. Here, reviews, 23,000, especially if you're a big company, which Allbirds is, the amount of reviews you will have is a lot. So why not use them? Small sentence, our number one fan favorite, adds incredible value. New colors, gains excitement. And then here, even add the motivation or perceived value. Tell the users what they need to know. This is the best value. Best value, what does it even mean? They probably just made this up because it's a very expensive product compared to the other products. There's a huge discount, 35% off. It could be all made up, but it really adds value. And this is a high-end brand, just like the shoes might be. So nobody kind of escapes all the different tactics that you have to use, even if you're a very classy brand. They do communicate the discount over and over again. Okay, if you scroll further down the page, that's often where it gets complicated for product pages, because you got so many products that you need to have so much content to be able to kind of back up all these claims that you're making and educating the user. And if all the products are different, you need to prepare all this content. It's not just like a CSV file you export and you import into your site. And that's often where the tricky part comes in. But it's incredibly valuable because you need to improve the perceived value and lower the risk that they're taking, right? You want to create a consumer surplus. They need to be the winners, not you. So here they are adding the different information points about the product that they should be aware of. It helps them feel safe and educated. A little bit down there, we have a very long image, and it's cut off here when I made a screenshot, but it doesn't even fit on a normal MacBook. So the image kind of takes up the whole space, and then you see the text. It's generally nice if you can just see the image with the text, so you kind of know what it's about. But the intention is right. They're educating you again, they're adding value. And then we have a very nice technical looking image, even more about the unique selling points and the functionalities. But I have to scroll pretty far down to get all this information. Well, most people don't even scroll further than the above the fold. So it's important to just communicate this where most people read it. And you can even elaborate further down the page, but you can introduce the benefits as high up as possible. Then at the bottom of the page, of course, if someone has reached the product page all the way down, they might not be interested. So here you want to direct them to a different product. They're mixing here products. I'm not necessarily sure if socks is a good fit for someone who's looking at shoes. It might be rather an upsell. After you've already added a product of $100 to cart, then an upsell of $20 is a lot easier. Because in this case, the user might want to find shoes. But it's interesting that there's a mix of products, so you can kind of still give guidance and give direction where they want to go to. And then here at the bottom, again, unique selling points about being responsible with the energy. A lot of information that probably less than 5% of the users will actually see on the page. So either it's not important or it should have been higher up. And this, of course, is a huge part to communicate just 3 sentences that could have been communicated elsewhere. So I think they can be a lot more conscious with the space they have. Okay, then we go to cart. I've added a product of $135 to cart. They're upselling me something that's $3. It's almost a no-brainer compared to what you've already paid for. If I wouldn't buy anything, I'm not going to pay $3 either. But if I'm already paying $135, then this is nothing, right? So what's interesting here is that they provide, again, context and comparison. In comparison, something that's very cheap is almost not even worth thinking about. And now $3 is very cheap. But of course, you can also add other products, like here, socks for $5 instead of $14. And here they're upselling very good, right? So they're choosing low ticket products that are very easy to add to cart without actually having to go back to the product page and read everything about it. And then you get frustrated or your wife calls you and you got to leave. So they're doing this pretty well. They even add the discount here, so that's all good. They know your size, so it would be interesting if they automatically select the size that you've bought the product in. And then here, even though something is free, even though they automatically might apply a discount or give you free shipping, always mention it. It cannot be mentioned enough. Every value you add, repeat it and make sure that they are aware of how it works. Okay, and then the last step, checkout. Of course, Shopify doesn't give a whole lot of flexibility on how to change this, but there are definitely a few things that you can do. You can add social proof, right? So here, there's barely any social proof. You can add it here at the top or here at the bottom. Could be either testimonials, could be just some reviews. They are upselling here, which is good. Always try to upsell the user also on the thank you page. So that's totally fine. Not sure how relevant this is still, right? Recycled shoe bag to shoes could be a good fit. But I think there's a different example that I want to show you that we looked at in another video. And here they're just stacking all the social proof, right? Even here the logo, guarantees, ships within 24 hours, social proof, testimonials. And here they're also upselling. And they're repeating all the discounts that you're getting, right? You should feel you're stealing something. And in this case, there are no discounts mentioned. While before they did give free shipping, right? And I think they also mentioned something else about automatically being applied. So they should have repeated that here. Okay, I think a lot of interesting learnings to take away from Allbirds that you can implement in your own store. We as a CRO agency have gone through this 1,000 times. If you struggle with your conversion rate and you need someone to help out with an audit or a full CRO program, we offer a 100% ROI guarantee. We're so confident that we will make you more money than we will ever charge. So if you're interested in that, just hit me up. Definitely leave a like down below so you can see more of our breakdowns of successful Shopify stores.